There's a truth no one tells you directly. It's not life that's exhausting you. It's the way you react that's wearing you down every single day. A careless remark from someone, a negative email from your boss, a comment on social media, and suddenly your entire day is ruined. You don't lose control because of big things. You lose control because of very small things, repeated over and over again. You wake up already feeling tired, not because you didn't sleep enough, but because your mind has never truly rested. You think what you need is less pressure, better people, an easier life. But here's the paradox. Even if everything gets better, you'll still find reasons to be stressed. Because the problem was never the situation, it's how you interpret it. Some people live in chaos, yet remain calm. Others have everything, yet feel anxious. The difference isn't in the outside world. The difference is in how you see it and how you respond to it. And that's where Stoicism comes in. Not as an ancient theory, but as a practical tool. A way to not be shaken by other people's words, not react impulsively, not let emotions control your life. You can't control the world, but you can control how you face it. And when you do that, everything starts to change. Not because life gets easier, but because you become stronger. In this video, you won't hear empty advice, no temporary motivation, only principles that have existed for thousands of years and still reflect human nature with uncomfortable accuracy today. Principles that help you stay calm when others lose control, stay clear when everything becomes chaotic, and stay grounded no matter what happens. But first, you need to understand one thing. If you don't have a clear direction, any wind is enough to lead you astray. If you don't want to be affected by life, you don't start by controlling your emotions. You start by knowing where you're going. Without a clear goal, you live reactively. With a clear goal, you begin to live intentionally. It sounds simple, but this is where most people fail. They try to stay calm while not even knowing what they're living for. And when you don't have a clear direction, any opinion can shake you. Any difficulty feels overwhelming. Like a ship with no destination, the waves don't need to be strong to push it off course. A friend of mine once quit his job after a single piece of criticism. Just one sentence from his manager. "You're not a good fit for this role." That was enough. He went home, doubted himself, and quit the following week. Not because the words were especially harsh, but because he didn't know what he was building toward. If you don't define yourself, others will do it for you. This is the first foundation of Stoicism, an internal goal, not a social goal, not something to show off, but something you choose and take full responsibility for. What kind of person do you want to become? What do you stand for? When you can answer that, everything starts to change. The criticism is still there. The pressure is still there. But it no longer carries the same weight because you're no longer chasing every small reaction. You're moving towards something greater. But there's another problem. Even if you have a goal, you can still be destroyed from within, not by others, but by your own thoughts. Your mind is not always on your side. It exaggerates problems. It holds on to negative things longer. It creates worst-case scenarios and then believes they're real. If you don't guard it, You're letting a saboteur live inside your own head. Think about an ordinary day. You check your phone in the morning. Negative news. Comparing yourself to others. An unanswered email. Nothing has actually happened yet, but you already feel pressure. Not because of the world, but because of what you allow into your mind. Stoics don't try to control the world. They control the gate to their mind. They understand a simple truth. You can't control the first thought that appears, but you can control whether you keep it. A negative thought is just a visitor. You don't have to invite it to stay. You are not hurt by what happens. You are hurt by what you repeat in your mind. So the foundation of an unshakable mind is not about becoming stronger. It's about knowing where you're going and choosing what you allow to influence you. When you have direction and you guard your mind well enough, you become harder to shake. Not because life gets easier, but because you stop reacting to everything. But then comes a harder challenge, not from your thoughts, but from other people. And that's when everything truly begins. You can control your thoughts, but you can't control other people. And that's where most people fall apart. Not because life is too hard, but because people are unpredictable. They judge. They misunderstand. They say things you don't want to hear. And if you're not prepared, you react on instinct, anger, defensiveness, or worse, self-doubt. Stoics see this differently. They don't try to control what others say. They control how they receive it. A criticism on its own has no power. The power comes from whether you believe it or not. Imagine this. You post a video. You spend hours making it. Then a comment appears. Ridiculous. Just 2 words, but it stays in your mind all day. Not because it's true, but because you let it stay. I once knew a content creator. His first video got a few negative comments, not many, but enough for him to stop. He didn't delete the video. He deleted the intention to continue. A few months later, he said something honest. I guess I'm not cut out for this. But the truth is, he never gave himself enough time to find out. A few opinions defined his entire potential. This is a common mistake. You hand over your power to others to define your worth. Stoics don't do that. They use a simple filter. If the criticism is true, they learn from it. If it's false, they ignore it. No excess emotion, no unnecessary reaction. Just clarity. But there's a deeper step, not just ignoring, but transforming. An insult can be an attack, or it can be training. It depends on what you choose. Think about a time someone spoke harshly to you. The natural reaction is to push back. But pause for a moment. What state was that person in when they said it? Were they calm or hurt? Most people don't speak truth. They speak their emotions. And you receive it as if it were the truth about you. It's not that others hurt you, it's that you accept that hurt. When you understand this, something shifts. You start to see others with more calm, not because they change, but because you're no longer pulled into their reactions. You don't need to win every argument. You just need to not lose yourself. Criticism isn't the problem. Your reaction is. When you stop reacting, you become harder to reach. Not because you're numb, but because you know what's worth your attention. But even when you're no longer affected by others, there's still something that can paralyze you. Not the voice from outside, but the voice within. Fear and shame. You can overcome others, but if you haven't overcome yourself, you're still not free. Your greatest enemy isn't someone out there, it's what happens inside your mind every day. Fear, shame, old memories you never let go of. They're not loud, but they control how you live. Stoics don't try to eliminate emotions, they understand them. They look directly at fear instead of avoiding it, because the truth is, fear is strongest when it's vague. The more you avoid it, the bigger it becomes. Think about a time you delayed something important. Sending an email, starting a project, saying what you truly think. You didn't avoid it because you couldn't do it. You avoided it because you imagined the worst outcome. Rejection, judgment, failure. But all of it existed only in your mind. I once knew someone who wanted to change jobs. He had a stable job, but he wasn't happy. He knew it clearly. But for 2 years, he did nothing about it. Not because he lacked opportunities, but because of one repeating thought. What if I fail? One day he sat down and wrote that fear out. What's the worst that could happen? Not getting the new job, wasting time, having to go back to where he started. He looked at that list and realized nothing there would actually destroy his life. A month later, he applied. 3 months later, he changed jobs. Not because the fear disappeared, but because he saw it clearly. That's how Stoics deal with it. No avoidance, no exaggeration, just facing it and naming it correctly. There's something else. Shame. Not about the present, but about the past. Mistakes you made, decisions you wish you hadn't chosen. You carry them with you like a sentence. But think carefully. The person you are now is not the same person who made those mistakes. You've learned, you've changed, yet you keep punishing yourself. You're not trapped in the past, you're holding on to it. Stoics choose a different path. They don't deny their mistakes, but they don't live in them. They take the lesson and let the rest go. Fear and shame don't disappear when you avoid them. They disappear when you understand them. When you do that, you begin to act, not perfectly, but clearly. Not with absolute confidence, but with enough to move forward. And that's when you realize you don't need to eliminate emotions to be strong. You just need to stop being controlled by them. But even if you overcome fear, life still won't go according to plan. Things will drift off course. Delays, mistakes, unexpected events. And if you're not prepared for that, you'll lose control again. You don't lose control when everything collapses. You lose control in very small moments. A rushed reply, a decision made in anger, an action you wish you could take back. Your life isn't destroyed by a single major event. It's worn down by small, uncontrolled reactions repeated over time. Stoics understand one thing clearly. You can't control what happens, but you can always control how you respond. It sounds familiar, but very few people actually live by it, because reaction is instinct. Control is a choice. Look at a simple situation. You send an important email. No response. An hour passes. 2 hours. Your mind starts creating stories. Are they ignoring me? Did I do something wrong? They don't respect me. You feel irritated. You want to send another email with a different tone, faster, sharper. I've seen someone do exactly that. He didn't wait. He didn't check his emotions. He sent a second email full of frustration. A few hours later, the reply came. The recipient was simply in a meeting. No bad intention, no disrespect, but the second email damaged the relationship. Not because of the situation, but because of the reaction. This is where Stoics focus, not on controlling the world, but on creating space between stimulus and action. A very small pause, but it changes everything. When emotion arises, you don't have to act immediately. You can wait 1 minute, 10 minutes, or longer. Emotions are like waves. If you don't jump into them, they pass on their own. The moment you react instantly is the moment you lose your freedom to choose. But control isn't just about doing nothing. It's about choosing the right action even when it's not easy. Speaking less when you're angry. Staying silent when you want to prove you're right. Continuing your work when you feel no motivation. Stoics call this inner discipline, not force, but a clear understanding of the consequences of each action. You don't need to win every argument. You just need to avoid doing things you'll regret. You don't become strong when things are easy. You become strong when you can control your actions in difficulty, when you master your reactions. Something interesting happens. You're no longer pulled around by circumstances. Others may lose their composure. Situations may become chaotic, but you remain clear. Not because you're cold, but because you've already chosen how to act before the situation even happens. But there's a deeper layer. Even if you control your actions, you may still struggle with reality. You want things to be different. You resist what is happening. And that's where many people remain stuck. You can control your thoughts. You can control your actions. But there's still something that wears you down. Reality. What has already happened. What you cannot change. What didn't go according to plan. And this is where many people get stuck. They try to control everything. When they can't, they resist it. They get angry. They feel frustrated. They ask, "Why me?" But that question changes nothing. Stoics see reality differently. They don't fight it. They start by accepting it. Not acceptance as surrender, but acceptance as clarity. You can't solve a problem if you refuse to admit it exists. Imagine losing a major opportunity, a job, a contract, a project you invested so much into. The natural reaction is, "I should have done better. This shouldn't have happened." You go back to the past, trying to fix something that no longer exists, while the present is being ignored. I once knew someone who lost a very big deal. He did everything right, prepared well, worked hard, but at the last moment the client chose someone else. For weeks he almost stopped moving forward, not because there were no more opportunities, but because he couldn't accept what had happened. He replayed that conversation hundreds of times, until one day he said something very simple. It happened. No justification, no blame, just the truth. And from that moment, he went back to work, without resentment, without the pressure to prove anything, just focused on the next step. That's the power of acceptance, not weakness, but the release of energy. You're not in pain because of what happened. You're in pain because you want it to be different. When you stop resisting reality, you start to see clearly what you can do. No more wasted energy on what if. No more getting stuck in why. Only this remains: what do I do next? But Stoicism doesn't stop there. Acceptance is just the beginning. The next level is living in alignment with your nature, not chasing approval, not getting pulled into superficial things, just focusing on core values: clarity, courage, integrity, and self-discipline. A simple life, but a solid one. Not always easy, but always meaningful. When you live by your values, you no longer need to control everything, because nothing external is strong enough to pull you off course. You don't need the world to be fair. You just need to not lose your principles. You don't need everything to be perfect. You just need to not be broken by it. And that's the final point. When you can accept reality and live true to your nature, you become steady. Not because life gets easier, but because you no longer depend on it to feel okay. And at that point, the question is no longer what will happen to you, but this: no matter what happens, you remain yourself. You don't need to remember every principle. Just remember this: life doesn't really attack you as much as you think. Most of what exhausts you is how you respond to it. You've already seen it. When you don't have direction, you become unstable. When you don't guard your mind, you get pulled in. When you let others define you, you lose yourself. When you fear and avoid, you limit yourself. When you react too quickly, you ruin things. And when you resist reality, you drain yourself. None of this comes from the outside. It all starts from within. You may not realize it, but every day there are small moments where you get to choose. Choose silence instead of reaction. Choose understanding instead of judgment. Choose to continue instead of giving up. Choose acceptance instead of resistance. These choices aren't loud. No one applauds you. But that's how you build an unshakable inner world. You don't need to become a perfect person. You just need to become someone who is no longer controlled by everything around you. Final message: you can't control what happens in your life, but you can always control who you become when it happens. And once you understand that, you stop living to avoid difficulty. You start living with steadiness, no matter what happens.